What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Sports Weekly podcast, where we talk everything Iowa State. I'm your host, Christian Royston, sports editor of the Iowa State Daily, and I'm joined with my co-host, Logan Shanks, the assistant sports editor. So we're going to be recapping the Oklahoma game. Very tough loss, 50-20. You never want to see a 30-point loss. And then we'll be going into some TCU stuff, Jack Trice legacy game. So should be fun. Except for the start with the Oklahoma. What did you see from that game?
Really, I was surprised that at the beginning they were able to keep up with them offensively. Obviously they started on the wrong foot, having that pick six, which if you're playing the ifs and buts of college football, that, you take away that pick six, it definitely could have helped them towards the end of the first half when they were down by 20, when you're not, going into halftime, you're not down by 20. Instead, maybe you're down by just 2 touchdowns. But they started off on the wrong foot, and like I said, while I was surprised they were able to keep up with them for a little bit, I think me and you both knew that it was going to come to an end and that Oklahoma was just going to run away with it, which they did.
Yeah, that's kind of what I expected. I didn't expect it to be, a 30-point loss. Mm-hmm. It was a little bit surprising. I thought Iowa State's defense was a lot better than they showed. It was one of those games where I thought maybe they'd score in the 30s, 40s tops, but once they got up to 50, you never really want to see a loss like that, especially for a team that has bowl game aspirations. It's really tough to see, losing by 30. And it is a road game, I'll give them that, but 30 points is still 30 points.
Yeah, and it's something that at the press conference on Tuesday, not a lot of people asked, is that the game really got away from the defense towards the end of that second quarter. They go on probably I believe it was probably 2 or 3 scoring drives right there. And then the defense going in the second half, they were able to hold Oklahoma to just 10 points. It didn't help, obviously, that Iowa State couldn't score any points in the second half. But really, I'm looking at the defense, wondering, something had to have gone wrong for them to give up, 3 scoring drives back-to-back going into the end of the first half. And, I think they stepped up. So my concerns for the defense, it's really it's not about playing a full game necessarily. It's just not having things get away from you in certain moments when your offense isn't producing.
Yeah, it seemed like they were just letting up big plays just all over the place. I guess that's what happens when you play Dylan Gabriel. He completed a lot of really good throws, but there was a lot of, missed coverage. There was a lot of corners that were getting burned by receivers. It was just really sloppy the entire start of the game. And, of course, the offense was keeping up at the beginning, but then the offense just stopped scoring. And once that happened, the game just got out of hand really fast.
Yeah, and I've talked a lot on this podcast about what Matt Campbell is as a coach and what his team is since his tenure. And Matt Campbell does not coach teams, or especially Iowa State, to keep up with an opponent. He coaches, and you're going to want this with any football game, but especially with Matt Campbell, you don't really see Iowa State really going like shot for shot with a team like Oklahoma. Their plan was I'm assuming would be to go in there, get up early, and then rely on their defense so that their offense doesn't have to, again, like I said, keep up with Oklahoma. But unfortunately, that's what happened. I think that's really what hurt them, is that the defense really in that first half, like I said, just didn't really show up in moments. And when you're down 20 going into halftime, it's a lot, and your offense was, I would just say it, not very good. In the bottom half of that second quarter, it's a lot to ask from your offense to score 20 unanswered points to even tie the game.
Yeah, it was one of those things that the offense, it was surprising that they kept up, and that was good to see. But then once they stopped, they're never going to win that firing match. Coming back from 20 is quite a bit, but then that was at half, so they still had another full half to play. So Oklahoma's still scoring. You're still not, firing back at them. And you talked about Campbell not wanting to go into that, looking for like a, this for that type of ball game. And when it became that, it just seemed like Iowa State just kind of rolled over and was like, all right, I want to go home.
And, maybe if you have guys like Brock Purdy and Breece Hall in there, more veterans, and I'll just say more talented, maybe you're able to continue going shot for shot. But with guys like Rocco Becht, who, people are going to point fingers at Rocco Becht, picked 6 and another interception in that game. I don't really, the stat line wasn't very good for Rocco, but I don't think it was by far the problem was him in that game. Offensively, they couldn't get anything going consistently. If you look at their drives in the second half, punt, they just couldn't get anything going as a whole.
Yeah, it was kind of just everything was going wrong everywhere. And I mentioned it. It kind of really did seem like they didn't want to be there in the second half. And I think Oklahoma also kind of felt that, which I feel like Oklahoma could have put up 70 on them and just they laid off a bit, and they were like, all right, let's give them a little bit of break. And it seemed like both teams were just trying to run the clock out, and I want to get out of here as soon as possible. But that's not what a game should be. And that's just kind of what it felt like. It felt like the offense was just not vibing it. And once they were down by 20, they were like, all right, this is it. And the defense was taking some plays off in the beginning, and that's how Oklahoma got up. And then once they got up too much, the defense, it was too little too late for them.
Yeah, and as soon as it became clear to both teams that Iowa State wasn't going to go in there as almost three touchdown underdogs and get the upset, as soon as it became clear to both teams, they were like, okay, like you said, the offense just kind of looked like they were giving up a little bit. I would assume that was the same for Oklahoma's offense. Not saying that they were giving up, but it's like, all right, we're up by 20. We don't need to burn
the clock out.
Exactly. We don't need to burn the brakes off them. So, maybe that is a little bit why Iowa State's defense looked better in the second half. But really, like I said, once they saw that Iowa State's offense could not get anything going in the second half, just trying to run the clock out. And honestly, I just think people shouldn't really be too surprised about this. It was a lot to but it was a lot to, convince yourself that Iowa State was going to be able to go in there and upset. On paper, Oklahoma is just better, more experienced, and more talented. So, it was good to see Iowa State's offense compete in that, first quarter, first half of that second quarter. But then after that, it just seems like more of the same problems in games like Ohio and Iowa, in their losses, where it becomes very clear in their losses, if they can't get anything going on first or second down, then you can't ask that offense, the inexperienced offense, to get a big play on third down all the time.
Yeah, and I think going into it, we were expecting that Oklahoma was going to come out on top. We were expecting Oklahoma to come out on top. We weren't expecting them to come out as 30 points, victors, but it's one of those games that you learn a lot from a loss, where we saw the offense move at times, we saw the defense lock down later, and I think it's one of those things that going forward might be promising. It's kind of hard to be promising after you give up 50 points, but it is one of those things that Oklahoma is a really good team, so it's not too crazy that they lost this one.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone, if you think you're giving up on, if anyone wants to give up on Iowa State now, then you just really haven't been watching this team from game one like we have. By no means after this game did I think, Iowa State, they're only winning that one game in the Big 12. No, I think that there still is some optimism. There should be no surprise that they lost this game. I think, if you tell us, kind of what you were saying, if you told us this time last week that they lost, oh well, we both predicted that in our staff picks.
Yep,
so we got that right. But if you told me by 30 points, then I'd be a little surprised. Yeah, but
I was expecting a little closer, probably like a 2-score up win, but yeah.
But
going by over 4 is a little rough.
Yeah, and we actually found this out on Monday that Matt Campbell had another interaction with a fan. We didn't really talk about the Ohio one that much. The Ohio one was definitely worse.
Yeah, for sure.
This Oklahoma one, no one really talked about it at the press conference. It was kind of more under.
Yeah, it was one of those that somebody told me about it, and I was like, I did not see that. Show me. And I saw it, and it was obviously it wasn't Campbell, needing to be held back from a fan. It was more like he got a little heated again, actually bit on whatever somebody was saying, which don't want to see that, especially on the road. So if this becomes a thing, I think it will become a thing, is now it's happened twice, and fans are going to go into those away games and be like, okay, we can yell at Campbell and he's going to probably bite back at us.
Right. And the first one we talked about a little bit, that was a surprising one because that's just not very Matt Campbell-esque. Yeah. But then, like you said, this second time, it's just got me even more confused because, obviously I get it from the first one, you lose on the road in a MAC conference game, you were probably supposed to blow them out. Obviously, Vegas wasn't on their side, but we knew that they were going to, we thought we knew that they were going to win that game. You have the sickness, whatever. But this one, the second time, it just makes me scratch my head wondering, all right, now Campbell, that this is going to happen at every game now when you lose. The fans are going to try and get to you. And I wouldn't say it's concerning, but it's just very different for me as someone who has always seen Matt Campbell as someone that has a cool head, no matter win or loss.
Yeah, and I kind of want to give him the benefit of the doubt that, the Ohio game, he was probably very frustrated in the loss because that's a team that he's beaten multiple times with, I'll say it, a far worse team than Iowa State, and for him to go in there and only able to put up 7 points against them, he probably was very frustrated. And then you have people yelling at him, calling for him to be on the hot seat. Yeah, I can understand that one. The Oklahoma game, I'll say that Oklahoma's a tough place to play. That place is really rowdy, and it is like hell in there to play against if you're the away team. So that's one of those that he was probably getting berated the entire game. And, as he's leaving, somebody probably said something that pushed him over the edge, and that was it. Obviously, he hasn't reacted like that before, so that is also something a little concerning. But, I think he was just maybe a little hurt from the fact that he's being berated the entire time. His team just lost by 30 points. His defense, which is supposed to be really good, let up 50 points. It's just not a good scenario, and, he just let the frustrations get the better of him.
Right. Again. And, who are we to say, we're not college head coaches. He's been through this at Toledo and at Iowa State now. He's a very experienced head coach. I'm sure he's dealt with way worse. And I think it's just at some point where the kettle gets too hot and, it just kind of boils over at some point. And, like I said, it's a little concerning the second time, but I've never really seen his character as an issue, so I don't think it's something that they'll have to worry about too much. But if it does happen again, then I think especially when Matt Campbell, and I'm not going at Matt Campbell here right now. I hope that Coach Campbell, if you're watching this, not going at you right now, but
we respect what you do.
Exactly. But no, I think, he's been through this enough times where I feel like he should know how to, react to stuff like that. But yeah, like I said, a third time, maybe you start questioning his character a little bit. And what I was saying is he always talks about, building up young men, and, it's hard to, you're really just teaching kids from 18 to 23-year-olds. He's talked a lot about that and just trying to be a good example and all members of his staff. Well, I just think that if it happens again, you need to start to bring that into question when that's one of the big things that he's always stood on. Yeah,
he's supposed to be that guy that people are looking up to, that role model, and you really don't want your role model to be, going off the fuse like that. But moving on to a little brighter segments. Obviously, if you've been watching any NFL or any football in general, you'll know that Taylor Swift is, all the talk at this point. So, as she's kind of helped the Chiefs turn around, I guess, when should we call in Taylor Swift for Iowa State? When should Iowa State get their Swift in there?
Let's see. What Taylor Swift song do I want to call on right now? Maybe, if there's if Iowa State puts up, a blank space on the scoreboard, they might just need to call up Taylor Swift so they can shake it off.
Oh boy, got a big Swiftie over here.
No, but it'd be interesting. I don't know how much we would have to pay to get Taylor Swift out at Jack Trice Stadium.
Yeah, she probably doesn't go to Iowa that much.
No, probably. I do remember, there's probably been a couple times where she's been at Wells Fargo Arena down in Des Moines, but making her way up to Jack Trice, especially once we get into the colder months here.
Oh, yeah.
I'm actually surprised she was at New York on Sunday night. Might have been a little cold one there, and
Toughing it out for her boyfriend.
yeah. But she'll probably also have to look at Kansas City's weather pattern once it gets into the colder months. Maybe little conspiracy theory here. Maybe when it starts to get into like November, December, her and Travis might be time to call it quits because
Yeah.
Travis
Kelce revenge arc.
I wouldn't blame her.
For 2,000 yards receiving.
I wouldn't blame her though, because it's being from Iowa. I know that these months in the north or in the Midwest get pretty cold. But yeah, this whole thing with Taylor Swift in the NFL has been interesting so far, to say the least.
Yeah, I'm gonna say we don't call her in just yet. I'm not gonna overreact from the Oklahoma loss.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say that this team is still on track to do what they plan to do. The loss stung a little bit more than I think they wanted it to, but I think they're okay.
Yeah, no, I think they're okay as well. And when you talk about Oklahoma, I think this is going to be a very similar situation when we play Texas, and that's going to be a home game too.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be a little bit closer since Iowa State will be at home, but this is a top 2, and after this weekend, maybe the top team in the Big 12, which that'll be a very interesting game to watch as well. I'm looking forward to that one.
I do think they are at the top of the Big 12, near the top. I'm still going to put Texas above them because I think Texas just has more talent just all around. I think you look at their skill positions, you look at
running
who's
back
leading the team, and you look at their defense, I think everything is just really good this year. So I think Texas is still at the top of the Big 12. I do think Oklahoma's second, and I really don't see anybody close to those two at this point.
Yeah, no, and there's been a lot of parity in the Big 12. It seems like the new teams in the Big 12, a new team in the Big 12 has not won a game yet, right? I think BYU, UCF, Houston, and what's the other one I'm playing? Cincinnati. I think they've all lost their Big 12 matchups so far.
Yeah, although some of them were kind of tough matchups to win in general.
Yeah,
but
Texas Tech played Oregon. That's not a new team, but it just shows you how I love watching Big 12 football. I think it's a lot different than maybe say like Big 10 or SEC or even Pac-12 ball. But I mean, that's why you only see usually like one or two, not usually two. You usually only see one team from the Big 12 maybe make it into the college football playoffs because the amount of difference between SEC ball and Big 12 ball. I mean, we saw it in the national championship game last year.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm not quite sure where I was going with that. But so far, it has been good to see the new teams. I think we'll be in Cincinnati for that Iowa State game, and it'll be interesting to go there for the new atmosphere as well.
Yeah, and I think you look at like the conference. I think it's interesting that Texas and Oklahoma are separating themselves at this point from the rest of the conference in the final year that they're going to be in the Big 12 because last year people were like, oh, this team's joining the SEC. There's no way. They're going to get just eaten up. And now Texas is a top 3 team. Oklahoma showed that they can put up a ton of points against anybody. So they both look SEC caliber at this point. So I think that is maybe a driving force into why they are doing so well this year is because they want to make a statement like, we are good enough to be in the SEC, get us out of the Big 12. But not saying that the Big 12 is still fun to watch.
Yeah.
I honestly think the Pac-12 is probably the most fun to watch this year. There's just so many teams in the conference this year that are going to be gone that are just putting up explosive seasons. It almost feels like the teams that are leaving for new conferences are wanting to do like one final hurrah and just have the seasons of their collegiate careers or whatever. Right.
And, you talk about the Pac-12, which might actually end up being the Pac-2.
Or nothing.
Yeah. I agree with you there because, especially watching that Colorado USC game. I mean, Colorado really, they had a shot to come back in that game.
Yeah.
But USC, I mean, they've been amazing this year to watch.
Yeah, Caleb Williams is just a beast.
Yeah, I honestly hope that he is not a Chicago Bear this year, this upcoming draft.
So he can be one next year.
Yeah, probably. Sorry, Bears fans, but it's not looking too hot. But
Yeah.
I guess I'd be surprised if he went back to USC. But yeah, going back to that Oklahoma-Texas matchup this weekend, I'll agree with you there that I think, it's pretty close between Oklahoma and Texas, 1A, 1B, whatever the case may be. But, Texas showed that they're capable of playing in the SEC when they beat Alabama. And of course, this is a little bit of a down year for Alabama. But, Texas, especially with Quinn Ewers, who has really surprised me so far this year, has kind of been taking that step up. I wouldn't say, he's, this isn't a season where he's going to win the Heisman. I think Caleb Williams and, Drake May, Michael Penix, guys like that are kind of running away with it. But that Red River rivalry game is going to be very interesting to watch. And that'll be really the true answer to who is the top dog in the Big 12, because it's not Iowa State.
That's true. All right. Speaking of other teams that are not on the top of the Big 12, TCU. Iowa State's playing them at home this week, so should be a good change of pace from another road trip. I'm going to take more of like an optimistic view of this one. It seems like this is a game that the team wants to win because this is going to be a very important game for them. Mm-hmm. It is the Jack Trice legacy game. So, honoring Jack Trice back at home against a very beatable opponent, I think this is Iowa State's get-right game.
Yeah, and I feel like we said that about the Ohio game too. That was a get-right game, and then we really said that about the Oklahoma State game. I wouldn't say this is as much of a get-right game because, like we were talking about earlier, that Oklahoma game was one that they expected to lose, but this is, it's a different way of saying this, but get back on track. You went into Oklahoma, you lost badly. It didn't seem like anything was really working for you in the second half. This is the, obviously embrace the Jack Trice legacy game. Mm-hmm. And then just prove yourselves again as the Big, you can contend for a bowl game and still be competitive in the Big 12 because, you get that big win against Oklahoma State, which, if you lose that game, you lose 3 games in a row. You're looking at 1-3. I think they honestly turned things around in that. I think just stuff really wasn't working for them against Oklahoma. So, and like you said, not a necessarily great team in TCU. Obviously they were in the national championship game last year, but they've lost a lot of really good players from that team. And, they still have good skill players, especially in the wide receiver department. The wide receivers for TCU is really what's been on the rise the last couple of years. But yeah, I think Iowa State, they're really treating this as a get back into contention as, a good team in the Big 12, which they have been the past couple of years.
Yeah, and you talk about the wide receivers. I think that bodes well for Iowa State because their best players on defense are the defensive backs and the safeties. Yeah. So if you're matching up, I think that's going to be a really good matchup is to see if Iowa State can keep the ball out of the air.
Yeah.
But other than that, it is kind of interesting that this team went from, a national championship game team to now losing a good amount of their roster, and they've lost to teams like, Colorado was not a terrible loss, I guess, a 3-point loss to a team that has been in and out of the rankings, playing a really tough schedule. But then most recently losing by 3 points again to West Virginia, who is a team that is not near the top of the Big 12.
They've not been good in the Big 12 for at least the past, 4 years probably? Yeah. I mean, they've had some guys, but really you're not talking about, them making a push since, I'm going to pull out Will Grier was a good quarterback for them.
Oh, yeah.
But,
they are 4-1 currently.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not really buying into West Virginia at this point.
No.
I've seen what they've been like the last couple of years. I think TCU has just taken a big step down. And I think, the momentum's not in their favor in this game. So going into Jack Trice, this could be a tough game for them to get back on track.
Yeah, and you talk about TCU taking a step down. It's a very similar case scenario to the Oklahoma State game, where Oklahoma State has taken really a big step down. And I think Iowa State, if they want to get back on track, like you said, they just need to take advantage of the opportunity that they have against, TCU, who, we talk about them not being a great team, but they're still a good team. They're a talented team. So, getting back to 3-3, 500 ball before you go on another road game, another Big 12 road game, actually, against a Cincinnati team would, again, I think right now, even before the TCU game, I can see that going either way. It's really an opportunity that Iowa State, you want them to take advantage of. The biggest thing that I think that they just need to get right is the defense. We talked about earlier in the season, the offense was the problem. Well, the offense has shown not only from Rocco Becht, but also in the run game. The run game got a lot better against Oklahoma. The offensive line was better. They were opening up holes for the running backs. I think the big thing is just getting the defense back together, which I think, like you said, they're best. They've been good at this for the past couple of years. They don't rely on their pass rushers. They rely on, just kind of locking up the skies with their corners and their safeties. And I say that no differently in this TCU matchup.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting that, they started the year with the offense struggling, and then they flipped a switch, and now the offense is doing really well, for the most part. And now it's the defense that needs to kind of get their head back in the game. But the defense is filled with veterans to this point where they've gone through this before, and they've seen, some slower performances, to the point where I think they know what they need to do to get back on track, and it shouldn't be too hard for them to do that. And I think this is almost a similar situation to the Oklahoma State game where, the teams see what the issue is, and, making that quick switch between a road game back to home, I think we might see that again in this game.
Right. And, talking about the defense getting back on track, that's really it's interesting because, not every football team's going to deal with scenarios where, okay, your offense balls out, defense not so much, and you're going to, flip around every other weeks. But the big difference is it's the good teams that are able to find consistent ball. And I think one thing we haven't really talked about that much is that, Nate Scheelhaase, he's had to come into his own as not only the play caller, but the offensive coordinator, just taking on a bigger role. So I think that's what's probably happened is, he was just getting used to, being the play caller and being the offensive coordinator. And that's how we were kind of coming after the offense as in like they needed to get better. And now I think that Nate Scheelhaase is there. And on the other side of the ball, the defense that we said has been struggling has defense coordinator in John Heacock, who's a veteran, especially with Iowa State. So I think definitely, he's a very respected, probably one of the more respected coordinators in the Big 12. So I think he's definitely he's capable of turning around the defense that, has, really, they have talented players. You don't need, this is Iowa State in general, but really, defensively, they've embraced they don't need 5-star talents. John Heacock's been able to, have successful defenses with 3 stars across the field. So really, I think it's just having trust in John Heacock to turn things around as the coordinator, which I think he is definitely going to be able to do these next couple of games.
Yeah, and I think you talk about John Heacock turning things around. I think he went into the Oklahoma game, we could almost see it in his eyes in the press conference beforehand. He kind of was worried about it.
Yeah.
And, for good reason as they put up 50 points. But I think, he went into that game expecting, Oklahoma's going to just run all over us. Mm-hmm. They're going to, destroy us in the air, destroy us wherever they want to. Mm-hmm. But I think going into this game, he probably, has almost short-term memory where he's like, all right, the Oklahoma game, whatever, didn't matter. Let's just work on what makes Iowa State defense as good as it is.
Yeah.
So I think I'm not too worried about, him getting back on track either.
No, yeah, and that's what you need. You need to have short-term memory, especially in a blowout loss on the road. Like, you just need to be able to turn. You can't let that, especially in week 5, be determine the rest of your season. And I think that, again, is what a great job, Coach Campbell, we were dogging on you in the beginning of the episode, but I will give you credit is that, Coach Campbell is very good at getting the mindset right in the players. You could even see it last year. Oh, they only won one game in the Big 12. Well, they were still in those games in the Big 12. It was just about, and I get annoyed when Campbell says this, but focusing on the little details, getting the little details right. And I think, that's kind of carried over into this year. But we've seen games where both the defense has been amazing, and now we've seen games where the offense has been good. You just need to have a game like that. And again, like I said, it's very hard to do that, but you need to have games where, you're working together and playing complementary football. As much as I hate to say a generic phrase like that, it is really what's true, especially against a Big 12 team where this is a game where they're very capable of winning it.
Yeah. And then going back to Nate Scheelhaase, I really did like the creativity he showed on early in that Oklahoma game. Mm-hmm. He really does seem to be kind of getting more confident in his job, I want to say.
He's trusting Rocco a lot.
Yeah.
That deep ball to Jalen Knoll, although it wasn't a perfect ball by Rocco, if you see one of the photos that Jacob Rice or Tyler Coe took for us, Knoll's definitely extending out for that, but
it's good to see some deep balls.
Exactly. Yeah. He, like you were saying, he's been really inventive as the year has gone on.
Mm-hmm. And I think he knows that Rocco's good at throwing deep balls because Rocco is pretty good at throwing deep balls. He's really efficient, and most of those are not really in danger of being turned over. Like, I'd rather him overthrow Jalen Knoll than underthrow him and throw another pick six.
Yeah.
But, it is cool to see that Nate Scheelhaase has brought this offense in a different direction that maybe Tom Manning probably couldn't have.
Yeah. And, you look at both of the pick sixes from Rocco, they're both really similar on check down passes behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
That, the first one, the one that was against Iowa, that was just a perfect read by the corner. This one, it was really just kind of a bad decision from Rocco. And it kind of sucks that that's how the game starts out for him because, you're working behind, and not only as an offense, but as a quarterback, just to have that be your one of your first plays from scrimmage. That obviously sucks, but no, I agree with you. They're definitely putting a lot of trust in Rocco, which is good. We've jumped on and off the narrative of letting Rocco cook or letting Rocco just kind of take the reins, but I think he showed, obviously, it's all about what has a player done for you lately, but I think overall Rocco has showed that he is a starter in the Big 12 that is capable of putting together a good offense and putting together good drives for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's something that you need in the Big 12 because most teams that are struggling right now are teams that don't have that, consistency at quarterback, that, good offense.
Yeah.
So moving into the Jack Trice game, the big news about it is that they are introducing new uniforms, which, we've gone in depth about where, it is, I think they're pretty cool.
No, yeah, I think they're really cool too. It's awesome to see that Iowa State is doing this and honoring him with the uniforms, and they've got a lot of stuff going on as well, both, before and or a couple days before and, on Sunday with that ceremony at Central Campus. So, no, I think it's really cool. And, you talk about the uniforms. We have, kind of gone back and forth about what our favorite uniforms that Iowa State has donned in the past couple of years. We've seen some bad ones. I remember, growing up, you see the stripes on the shoulders. Those were, I am
a fan of the stripes. I'll be honest.
I'll always remember them because, it's what I grew up with. Mm-hmm. But if we're talking about favorite uniforms recently, I can not picture an Iowa. If I'm just picturing an Iowa State game, I'm watching it, whether I'm at the game or watching it on TV. I always love seeing the red helmet, white jersey, red pants combo. Mm-hmm. I just love bringing out that red that I think Iowa State does really well for their uniforms. And just combined with that, when I see a white Iowa State jersey, I think of that 15 Brock Purdy. Anywhere they seem to wear that a lot on the road. But yeah, that's definitely one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah, and my favorite, it's going to be a really generic answer. All right, don't smite me, but I do love the all black jerseys. that seems like everybody does at this point. I don't know. It might not be an Iowa State look, but I have like good memories in them. I remember watching them upset West Virginia at home when they were a top 10 team and storming the field, and that's when they wore their All Blacks. I think, all those night games where they wear their All Blacks, it's just like, it's such a clean uniform.
Yeah, and they do a good job of when to wear the All Blacks. They did it against Oklahoma State, which that that was a 3:30 game, so then it goes into kind of the nighttime, so it still looks good. But I agree, the black uniforms do look good. I also have memories of my freshman year. They're going in. I think they wore the black uniforms a little too much in the COVID season, in the Fiesta Bowl season.
Brock Purdy looked good in all black, I'll be honest.
But black did suit Brock Purdy. Most importantly, I did love watching them wear it in the Fiesta Bowl. That definitely was awesome. And for a time, a lot of people are going to remember this. Until the Big 12 championship game, they were undefeated in the all black uniforms.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I think they have superpowers in those things.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just a better team in all black.
They have not. I don't believe they have announced the uniforms for the TCU game. So if they want to bring those out, I think again, it might be better. That would be a good debate. What's better, having Taylor Swift at your football game or wearing your all black uniforms?
That'd be tough. I might have to say goodbye, Taylor. We're going with the All Blacks.
Oh man,
they might also wear the Jack Trice uniforms for TCU.
Yeah, that's probably those probably
maybe a safe bet.
That's probably a safe bet. If I'm not a betting man, but if I would, I would retract my statement about the uniforms being announced.
Yeah, I mean, if we're to saying that all black is, although it is a good look, it's not really an Iowa State look.
Yeah,
it's almost a generic look. I do like the red helmet, red jersey, yellow pants.
Okay,
really bringing it back. But those are just, I don't know. I like the yellow. I just don't like full yellow. So don't give me the full P uniform. I ain't rocking with it.
Yeah, I don't. That would look a little too much like Iowa when they did their all gold uniforms with black letters, which for them it looked good, but
yeah,
I don't know. I'm looking at a picture of Alan Lazard with the red helmet, yellow jersey, yellow pants.
Yeah. Not a big fan of the yellow jersey.
No, it's
almost too much yellow. That's why I kind of like the yellow pants.
I would actually kind of rather do the yellow jersey.
Just red, yellow, red.
Yeah, or red. Yeah, red, yellow, red. That'd probably be my pick. I will say that does remind me of the stripes on the shoulders. That reminds me of Alan Lazard more than Alan Lazard, Joel Lanning.
Some good times.
David Montgomery. Yeah, it reminds me of those guys.
Yeah.
But if we want to move on to our next segment that we were going to do, which is Awards of the Week. I really wanted to bring this one out because of, I kind of forgot. I wouldn't say forgot, but a guy that made a huge play in that Oklahoma game. I want to give my, oh, hey, there's that guy award to Jeremiah Cooper, who got his fourth pick of the season. And if you remember, obviously, Jeremiah Cooper had 3 picks through 2 games, was tied for leading the nation in interceptions. And then he kind of, I wouldn't say he went quiet for the next couple of games, because then he was giving up some big blown coverage plays, especially in, that Ohio game. And even in the win against Oklahoma State, we talked about the defense not looking great. Jeremiah Cooper has had some bad pass coverage plays, but, he gets that 4th pick of the season, and that's just awesome for him. And he gets my, oh, hey, there's that guy award of the week.
Yeah, no, that's a good pick. I want to give my award, I'm going to call it the Playing Like a Real Starter award. I'm going to give that to Ben Nickel because, as a walk-on, the guy who is pretty much a special team specialist, that's kind of weird to say, but special team specialist, he's kind of moved in that defensive back role. He made quite a bit of plays against Oklahoma. Seemed like every time he was on the field, he was doing something good.
Yeah.
Obviously, he still has some shaky bits, like he is playing like a walk-on, but I think for the most part, he is playing like a starter. So just want to give him my playing like a starter award.
And he's really come into his own on the defense. I think at first we were surprised that he was getting a lot of defensive snaps. Like, all right, what is walk-on Ben Nickel doing out there?
Yeah.
But then I have to remember that, walk-on doesn't mean that you're not talented.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you also look at like Caleb Bacon,
Yeah.
another one who's had his name out there, and he's also a walk-on.
Yeah, I would expect for Caleb Bacon to definitely to stay on this team, or not stay on this team, but get a scholarship probably at the end of the season if he continues to ball out.
Yeah.
And one thing, we don't have it on our doc here but if as the season goes on, you got to think about the ever looming transfer portal. One player that I was actually thinking about today that I'd be scared to see go, especially since he's getting a lot of reps as a true freshman. Do you think Abu Sama transfers at the end of this year?
I mean, I don't really see him transferring because I think at this point he's almost set up to be a good feature back if he wants to be, but at the same time hasn't shown as much as he needs to be a solid transfer in a lot of schools' eyes. So I think he's almost just like on the fence of being like good enough to go wherever he wants and bad enough to not have success here. So I think he's almost like in a good spot here, and plus him being from Iowa, it almost just seems like maybe he will stay here.
Yeah, and there's also been talks about maybe like guys like J.J. Cole, who did see some action in Oklahoma. And
yeah, a little bit.
for all the J.J. Cole lovers out there, guess what? Still the same.
Yep,
not a great passer. Good on his feet.
Didn't really see anything in the air.
Yeah, and people aren't wrong for calling for J.J. Cole to get out there, but when he does, it was the same. He looked the same that he did when he played in the UNI game.
Yeah, I think I was one of those that was kind of hoping to see him a little bit. I was like, okay, they're down by 20. Let's throw out JJ.
Yeah.
Just for, why not? And I was hoping to see a little bit more, a little bit different, but it was pretty much the same,
Yeah.
And if that's how he's going to be as a guy that takes off 2 out of 3 plays, I don't really see him finding a ton of success.
Yeah, no.
He's got to throw the ball.
Exactly. And, we talk about him being like, it's not like he's even going to, like, at this point, he's not going to start any games. Rocco has definitely...
Yeah, he's definitely separated himself.
Exactly. And I think that's that's got to be, and I know, in that QB room, they're probably, really close. They talked about going into the offseason like, oh, they're working off each other. It's been a tough competition. Honestly, I would love to see what the competition was like in camp, considering how far, like even with Rocco, after his first couple drives, he really was, okay, like this guy's a starter. But with JJ, and, he is young. It's his first year in the system. Obviously, Rocco has that over him. But I think this is more just about the people that were calling for JJ to be in, is if you want JJ to be in, this is what you're going to get. Like, he's just not ready to be a starter for Iowa State yet.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, we'll wrap it up with a score prediction here. Probably not going to see JJ in this game.
No.
But we will see.
If we do see JJ, I mean...
Yeah, I'm going to have to clean my glasses off.
Up by 30 or down by 30 again, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the case. I think we're in for a close game. I'm guessing another 1-score game, so I'll give Iowa State the benefit of the doubt again. I think they'll bounce back. I think the Oklahoma game was like what they expected. So I'm going to say that the offense is going to go out 28. They're going to score 28 points to TCU's 21.
Gotcha. I agree. Probably going to be a 1-score game here. I will take Iowa State. I will take them for... I'll take Iowa State 31, TCU 20.
Okay.
Oh, Iowa State 31, TCU 20.
I might actually change my answer because I was just thinking TCU's lost by 3 points in each of their losses. So give me 24-21.
Okay. And
That could be right.
if it is right, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to. You can give me a punishment if that is the exact score. What'd you say? 24-21?
24-21. Yeah.
I think, that could be fair. Like, I think Iowa State's defense holds them to,
To just 3 scores. I could see that.
three scores, maybe gets them in range for like
Or 7 field goals.
7 field goals. Fits 7 touchdowns. Starting to look more like the Dolphins, but
Oh boy. More like the Oklahoma game.
yeah, that would be fun to talk about some NFL ball on here. But I don't think the listeners really care about our NFL takes, or maybe they don't really care about the Cyclone takes either.
Yeah.
But
Maybe we got to make the takes hotter. We won't be calling for Campbell's hot seat yet.
I was gonna say
that's next podcast.
What's hotter, the Matt Campbell seat or the hot takes on this podcast?
Well, I guess we'll see. Thanks everybody for listening and watching. We will be back next week after the TCU game for more Iowa State content. See you.
Go Twins.